Hey there, Wolfpack fans. It's me again, Kenton Gibbs, with my main man, Grayson Boone. And folks, we have yet another addition in the portal, but that means we have another departure, which is, we're a little sad about it. We're sad to see Mahorcic go. However, he was cleared for his waiver, and we're going to talk about what that means. And in Memphis, it is not a parade inside that city for many reasons, one of which is a point guard that could be bringing his way to NC State. We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Wolfpack. Grayson, you ready to get into it?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All righty. Well, before we do, I've got to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. So we've got all the portal talks. We've got all the scholarship talk. We've got all of it here. So stick around while we break it down on today's episode of Locked On Wolfpack.
You are Locked On NC State, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So first thing first, I would like to say, if you're eating your steak further than medium, jail immediately. Don't pass go. Don't collect 200. Jail. But anywho, Grayson, how was your weekend, man?
It was good. I didn't do a whole lot personally, but sometimes that makes for some of the best weekends. But there was a lot going on in the world of Wolfpack. There was some good, there was some bad. But in an effort to honor Scott Van Pelt here, I'm going to tell you the best thing I saw from this past weekend, and that was our women's tennis team who won the ACC championship. And I'll tell you why this is significant. One, it's the first time we've ever done this in school history. So that enough is incredible. That's an incredible accomplishment. Number two, I think you'll be pleased to hear that we beat UNC to take the title.
We beat who to take the title? Just one more time for me. It rolls off your tongue so great.
The University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels.
Gotcha. Okay.
And if you needed just a little bit more, if you needed a cherry on top, North Carolina was undefeated coming into this championship match in which NC State took home the ACC title. So salute to our women's tennis team. That is an incredible accomplishment. Speaking for all of Wolfpack Nation, we're extremely proud to bring home the hardware. And I'm sure it's very well deserved with the incredible season that they are having on the tennis court.
Absolutely. And let me just say this, at NC State, we get excited about everything. We're easily excitable people. Any win that we see is a damn good one, and this falls into that category. This is a damn good win for the Pack. Anytime we can get a conference championship, it's absolutely great. This is a school that is starting to be a school of champions all around. And I'm telling you, we're waiting on you, the big three. Y'all know who you are, to break your ACC championship curse. But we're not talking about y'all right now. We're talking about women's tennis. Congratulations for doing y'all thing. Peace and love to y'all. Keep it up. Keep the great stuff rolling. And get up, bring us more rings, bring us more chips. Have that trophy case packed out. You get the pun? Packed out. You love it. Anyway, yeah. Go ahead and do your thing, woman.
Yeah, no, that was an excellent thing that we saw over the weekend, and it's kind of refreshing to see NC State becoming, a further step in the direction of like an everything school. We're becoming slowly better at seemingly everything, and I think in turn that will eventually help, quote unquote, the big three. But now getting into the meat of this episode, we had some more basketball news over the weekend, something we've kind of been waiting on because we've been hearing whispers about it. This is referring to Dusan Mahorcic. He did get approved for his medical hardship waiver, so that was very exciting. A lot of people were waiting in the wings to kind of hear how this was going to turn out. There was a lot of speculation on how exactly we would bring him back if that were the case. I was hearing a lot that they were basically going to take Mahorcic off of scholarship, cover his scholarship using NIL, and then use his scholarship spot to then try and attract another player out of the portal. Well, it seems like that turned out to be the plan. However, we could only really be so excited at the announcement of Mahorcic getting his medical redshirt waiver. And I do want to point out that when this came out, I believe this was on Saturday afternoon, maybe Saturday morning, the vibes were kind of off when this came out because it just came from a screenshot of his Instagram page. And after that, it kind of slowly came out in the rest of, I guess, like Wolfpack news. But more often than not, when something significant happens like this, you'll see the main Wolfpack firms come out and say, this is the news. This is why it is significant. And I wasn't
gonna get on the phone with him and have the whole like, "Hey, how you doing?" Record that, record him, make the video, say, "Hey, Wolfpack Nation, I'm back." The hype video, and it just didn't happen here.
And I wasn't seeing any of that. So then my wheels got spinning, and I was like, "This feels like there's something more to this." Well, nothing else happened on Saturday, but wouldn't you know it, Sunday evening, bang, Mahorcic is now into the transfer portal. And there's a lot more to sort of digest with this as well. Hearing the things I've been hearing, I think this ultimately makes sense. This is all speculation. I don't know per se the hard facts of what has been going on, but it sounds to me like this had reached a situation where the health of Mahorcic was a bit of a concern in that he wouldn't be able to return to the court until potentially the middle of the season. And so taking Keatts' side of the street here, I can understand why this would be a mutual decision to part ways and then use his eligibility spot here to try and give to someone else. I completely understand that. I also understand that it sounded like Dusan was wanting to stay here. So I'm sure that was an extremely difficult conversation between Coach Keatts and Dusan whenever that took place. But yeah, so he enters the portal. So he was able to get his waiver for his medical redshirt. That's great because I do think he should end his college career on the court instead of on the sideline, as he did miss the remainder of last season after he went down with a knee injury. So that was great. Very happy that he's going to get to play. And then I'll wrap this up here. We roll into Monday, and I start hearing that we have another potential commit on campus with an official visit. This commit goes by the name of Mohamed Diarra. He is a 6'10" power forward / center from Missouri. And a couple hours later, bang, he commits. And so in a whirlwind, in about probably less than a 24-hour whirlwind, we have Mahorcic, he's back, he's gone, and now we have a replacement. Just like that. The kitchen stayed on for Kevin Keatts.
Yeah.
So Ken, what is your summary? What's your synopsis of the situation here?
I mean, as a guy who, had injuries and all that, my heart goes out to Mahorcic because I understand. You know what I mean? I understand at a very high level that most people cannot relate to, like what it feels like to want so badly to give your all and do everything, but your body physically can't do it. And it ends up being a situation that's not tenable for either you or the team or both parties, where you can't really go anymore. And so, from what I've heard from the medical folks I've talked to about his injury, they're like, I mean, that was a rough one. And he could potentially have another surgery on the way, which is absolutely crazy if that's the case. I hope that that's not the case. I hope that is very much so not the case. But with that being said, again, it's whether we want to realize it or not, whether we want to talk about it or not, even though this is amateur sports, let me make sure we get both hands in here. Amateur sports, like it's very much so a performance-based industry. And if you can't perform, even if it's not your fault, things kind of work out in the way that they do sometimes, you know what I mean? And that's just the reality there. But Mohamed Diarra is a player that I've heard talked about in terms of like a kind of unlimited upside type of guy, right? Kind of a started playing basketball later than most, is very raw, but has all the tools there, shows flashes type of guy. And I'm like, that's what this roster needs at a very high level, because I don't think that he comes in and is instantly disgruntled if he's not taking a ton of minutes off of DJ Burns or Isaiah Miranda right away. I don't think that's the case here. I think this is a guy who's been at JUCO, earned his stripes a little bit, did the thing down there, came up to Missouri, didn't play much last year on a very good team with a pretty good front court there. This is a guy that I think, again, he can be impactful, but more importantly, he can learn and soak up that knowledge from a very veteran big who's been to 3 schools, who's played college basketball for going on 5 or 6 years now in DJ Burns. I think this is a great get for the Pack.
Right. It definitely is. So in summary again here of Mohamed Diarra, he was the number 1 JUCO recruit in 2022. And then he did ultimately commit to Missouri, where he spent his most recent basketball season. He's from Paris, France, so he's an international player, which I find interesting. Mm-hmm. He also has 2 years of eligibility remaining, which I think is a key piece to this as well. Ultimately, what we're now learning here is college basketball is very much a revolving door. Yeah. And in year 2 of the transfer portal here, you have no idea at the end of the season who's going to stay and who's going to go. It's wild. It's hard to keep track of nowadays. And it's also hard. I guess it's kind of hard for the fans who grow attachments to these players and they want to try and learn so much about them. And then the season's gone, poof, they're out the door.
But can I say, and you know what? Let me say this. We got to go to break here, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we come back, because I feel very strongly about this and something that college basketball is changing, and it's kind of like the fans are naturally changing with it, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But before we do, I've got to talk to you all about FanDuel, folks. Grand slams, no-hitters, double plays, all that is back. Playoff Jimmy Butler is back, and there's no better place to get in on all the MLB, NBA. I hear that the Hurricanes are doing great things, whooping the wheels off the Islanders, the NHL, you name it. And you can get in on the action at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can sign up and step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. Just imagine that, right? Imagine if somebody told you got to hit a ground ball off Roger Clemens, and even if you miss, you're still going to get money. You would do it, right? Because it's a win-win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up. Place your first bet and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball. Now, Grayson, I kind of got into this right before we went to break, but with the way that college basketball is now, and I'm being very honest about this, and I don't mean to make this rude, or I'm not trying to denigrate anybody, but the way that college basketball is now, do fans really grow heavy attachments to these individual players? And I say that because 2 of the players that we've talked about majorly today, or really 3, right? And Mahorcic, NC State was his second or third school? At third. He was at Illinois State, then Utah, now NC State, right?
More than that. Would you believe NC State was his 5th school?
That was his 5th college?
His 5th college.
But
which means he's now moving on to his 6th
college.
Yeah.
But you see what I mean? Like,
I do. I get it.
We're not talking about like the 70s, 80s, and 90s where it's like, oh, Derek Whittenberg's going to play here for 4 years. Oh, Thurl Bailey's going to play here for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, these guys are going to be here for, Cat Barber's going to be here for 3 years. That's not the reality of this thing anymore. It's just not. And it would be great if it was. Even as late as I want to say, what was it, TJ Warren, that, hey, he's going to be here for 3-4 years, whatever the case may be. It's just not the case anymore. We don't see those long-time players sticking around for years and years and years. Look at last year's team. Look at our top 2 scorers. Who were they? It was Jarkel Joyner, who was on his 3rd school at NC State, and it was TeQuavion Smith, who was in his 2nd year. And we all knew, like, hey, him giving us more than one was like, hey, that's a good thing for us. We kind of got one there, and that was that. But that's the reality. The biggest personality on this team is DJ Burns, who's on his 3rd school. So, like, I understand that fans kind of build attachments to these players, but I think that fandom in college basketball is changing, that it's not so much about the players as it is about the team in certain ways, because it can't be. Because your favorite players, I mean, one of my favorites was Shaq Moore, and he was playing big minutes, and he was doing good things.
I miss Shaq Moore. I do.
And we all miss him, and he was just gone. It was just like, wait, what happened? Why is Shaq leaving? So, it's kind of the nature of the game, but I think that fans are handling the adjustment better than expected.
I agree. I mean, I do think that fans are still growing attachments to these players. I mean, obviously, DJ Burns became the most popular as quickly as he did, but I think Jarkel Joyner won over a lot of Wolfpack fans, and he became a fan favorite. And that's a different situation because, he only had 1 year of eligibility left,
Right.
so you can't do can't really do anything about that. But while fans are, still having these attachment to the players, yes, I do think fans are also going to have to adapt to this because, I mean, opening the doors to Narnia here where players can just run free and pick out a school where they would like to go, essentially, that's how it is nowadays. And I do think at the end of the day, it is a good thing because I think more often than not, you're going to see players wind up in a better situation that suits them best rather than, staying and perhaps your college experience doesn't shape out the way you wanted it to. Now you have the ability to go and see what else is out there and perhaps make something work for yourself. And then the last part of this conversation I think always gets thrown in is that these coaches have been able to just zip across to another team with no revolving circumstances. They can just take a payday and they're off into the sunset.
Let's not forget, and we don't get political on this show, and so we're not going to do it now. However, U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville is the greatest example of this in college sports history. Do you remember what Tommy Tuberville did that was so like, wait, what? He did what in terms of coaches having freedom of movement?
You're going to have to refresh me, but I know he was at Auburn.
So he left recruits at dinner to go take his new job. He literally,
that's right.
He literally had a bunch of recruits at dinner and everybody sitting down, eating, breaking bread, all that good stuff.
That's right.
And he left the recruits at dinner to go take his new job. And it was like, wait a minute, what? Like, what? How?
That's cold-blooded.
How do you? And again, this isn't just like some random. This isn't just some random like, oh yeah, this is a no big deal. These players weren't supposed to be there anyway. He was down in Lubbock at Texas Tech, literally hosting these players on their official visit, which means that there was a lot of coordination that went into this. And when he got the call from Cincinnati, he said, all right, cool, appreciate it, and left, hopped on the jet, and was going to Cincinnati, and the players had no clue. Ooh. They sat there and waited for about 30, 45 minutes, like, wait, is Coach coming back? And one of the assistants let him know, like, hey, Coach Tuberville is no longer with us. And then they left.
That's nasty work.
So, the recruit game has always been nasty work, but
it's an evil world we live in.
It's an evil world we live in. But thanks to some rather interesting figures that have emerged recently, we've been hearing some of how the evil world that we live in is working in NC State's favor. Mr. Trilly Donovan. Now, I know most of you are looking at this name saying, Trilly Donovan, like, what is that? he has been very spot on with his recruiting predictions for multiple teams. And NC State is one that he has been fairly spot on about in terms of the transfer portal so far. Jaden Bradley, point guard, the guy that I said he's a table setter supreme. Well, folks, just when we thought that he was taking his picnic setting abilities on over to Memphis, next thing you know, we're hearing that there's something odd going on, potentially with some NIL workings over there. Somehow the money ain't adding up. The price is way too high. You need to cut it. Something along those lines happening. And it's a potential situation where Mr. Bradley could find himself in Raleigh. Grayson, what are you thinking here?
So just a little bit of a background here for people that don't know. Yes, so Trilly Donovan here. It's an unusual username. I get that it probably looks like a bot to some people, but he has kind of come out of nowhere and has become a key college basketball transfer portal insider. And if you don't believe me, I encourage you to go to his page and just, take a trip down his timeline and see all of the things that he has been right about the past couple weeks. So, for example, DJ Horn to NC State, he had that correct. He had MJ Rice correct. He mentioned that Jaden Bradley was going to be looking at NC State, but he was hearing that it was much more likely that Bradley was going to end up at Memphis. Well, now it seems like something fishy, as he says in this tweet, is going on at Memphis. I've heard it's NIL related. And so it appears that NC State is very much still in play for Jaden Bradley. And
absolutely,
much like an MJ Rice, this would be a monumental accomplishment if Keatts is able to land Bradley out of the portal. Again, Bradley's another 5-star All-American. He's a transfer coming from Alabama, so he was a freshman playing, consequential minutes on what was the number one basketball team in the country for much of the year last year. So he is, just a freshman last year, but I would say his game is proven. He's a proven, as you mentioned, Kenton, table setter supreme. I think he is that. And so buckle up. We're still in the mix, but here's where I want to tie back in the beginning of this episode and talking about Mahorcic and scholarships, because with the addition of Mohamed Diarra, we are now at max capacity. The hotel is full. So I've heard that we're continually recruiting Bradley, which makes it very interesting, because what does this mean? It means somebody's going to get up out of here if this comes to fruition. And now that is, I think, the ugly side of the transfer portal and how everything shakes out now, because you got a lot to say, Kenton, but I think
because there's an answer here. There's an answer here, but go ahead. Proceed.
I'm wondering if I'm about to say it, but I think if you have a shot at a Jaden Bradley type, a 5-star All-American McDonald's type, I think you take that shot every single time.
Absolutely.
Every single time.
100%.
Go ahead.
100%. I like LJ Thomas. I like Breon Pass. They're both fine players. Knock it off. Get some help. Get some help. And even further. So we just lost an offensive lineman who was on scholarship on the transfer portal for football. Why am I talking about football? What was Breon Pass? Also a 3-star athlete in? He was a corner and a receiver. Listen, again, if you're looking at a scholarship situation, I heard that they were going to try to somehow make Mahorcic a walk-on to supplement his scholarship with NIL or whatever. Guess what would happen if you were to go over to another sport and be a scholarship athlete over there and just happen to play both? We've seen it before. We've seen it. Russell Wilson was technically a walk-on for the baseball team, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't count as a scholarship on the baseball team because he was on scholarship for football. Breon, put your cleats on, big dog. That's the only way. If you like Raleigh that much, go on and grab a helmet. Go on and grab some shoulder pads, brother. Go on and get. No disrespect to you. You know what I mean? Listen.
We need him covering the slot receivers.
I need him as the slot receiver. What you mean? Nate can put some use to you. Like, come on now. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. But no, in all seriousness, this could be one of those situations where, like you said, it's the ugly part of it where, I know that everybody says, oh, you can't fire players because it's college football and it's amateur athletics. I'm here to tell you today. I played at Cass Tech. For those of you who don't know, Cass Tech is a football powerhouse in the Midwest. We send a ton of players to school every year, at least 8 to 10 to FBS programs every single year, every year. We have all seen everybody from every school, every conference, be it the MAC, be it the Big Ten, be it the Pac-12, be it the WAC conference, be it the Big 12, SEC. We've all seen ACC. We've all seen sometimes players get fired. Like, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. Sometimes they call it over recruiting, but you got fired. They did not think you were good enough and had a chance at somebody that was better than you and just bring in a better guy. So if they can figure out a way to work out that scholarship number, I'm not saying that I've given you the answer to work out the scholarship number to not have to get rid of one of those guys. But I'm just saying I don't see too many other players that you could put on scholarship for another sport where, like, they legitimately had the offer anyway for that sport. So, just a little thought there.
I think, we've been repeatedly saying that Keatts is cooking. He's been in the kitchen. I think adding a Jaden Bradley would just be the perfect little rosemary flakes on top of the medium cooked steak.
Medium. I disagree. I think adding Jaden Bradley in is adding the perfect side dish. It's adding the perfect, the side that brings it all together. You know what I mean? Like, if you've ever had the mashed potatoes at Sullivan's, that type of side. If you've ever had the bread from Emilio's, that type of side, that whatever you get from Emilio's, that bread is going to bring it together.
It ties the whole thing together.
There's, I'm a food guy. I'm a little bit of a foodie. I can tell you about a ton of restaurants in the area, and I'm telling you, the right side, it brings it, it makes it all work well together. And again, I'm gonna tell you now, a guy like Jaden, that's a guy that you want to. I'm just saying, and by the way, I want to point out something about Trilly Donovan. Did y'all realize, if you haven't noticed yet, it is Billy Donovan. Obviously, the name and the profile is a wordplay on Billy Donovan, but inside of Billy Donovan's hands is a what, Grayson? It's a portal. It's a portal inside his hands. Trilly Donovan is about this life, people. Put some respect on Trilly's name, okay? Put some respect on Trilly's name. So, I'm interested to see how this Jaden Bradley situation plays out. Again, I think that this roster is coming together in an amazing way. I think that Jaden Bradley is the final piece to putting something. Like, I think either way, next year is going to be a really good season. But I think Bradley is the final piece to. We have not had this type of point guard when is the last time we had a really, really good distributor? Like, that's his main deal at point guard here. Because I'm trying to think back, and I really can't remember.
I would put Cat Barber in that position. He was more of a scorer out of necessity.
Yeah. For me, it always felt like Cat Barber was more of a scorer who, like, if y'all gonna make me play the point, I guess I'll figure out how to distribute. But you could tell that wasn't like what he wanted. That it didn't seem like that was like his game per se. Like, it didn't seem like setting other guys up was like, this is what I enjoy more than anything else. I don't care about me getting a bucket. I want to set up guys. That's what I want to do. So, it's been quite some time. It's been quite some time since we've had a pure passer, the likes of a Jaden Bradley, come through Raleigh, and it would be great to see if we could get him because, again, love me some Penny Hardaway. That's my guy. That is my dear brother in Kappa Alpha Psi. But, hey, Keatts is in the portal. He put his apron on. He put his chef hat back on. He said, y'all thought I was done. The wrist is still whipping. The product is still cooking. We still got it rolling over here. So, good things to hear there. Grayson, give me a last word on all this madness we've seen in the portal over these last few weeks. Talk to me.
Let Keatts cook.
No better words than that. No better words have ever been spoken. Wolfpack Nation, I thank you all so very much for coming out. Every single time that y'all do, y'all make this show what it is. And by the way, please tell us in the comments, who's the last really good pass first point guard that NC State had? Because now I'm very interested in this. I'm genuinely racking my brain here because I'm like, was it Beverly? And then I'm like, no, he was a shooter. Maybe
Javi Gonzalez on way back.
Okay. I can see it. I can see it. So with Wolfpack Nation, let us know. Who was the last great passing point guard that we had that made an impact here? Thank you all so very much for coming out. Peace and love, y'all. And as always, go Pack.
Go Pack.
You are Locked On NC State, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.